We'll be comparing and testing 9 different Firefly teams and builds in every endgame, working our way up from the low investment teams to the high investment ones to see if characters like Asta or Bronya are viable options for Firefly, if she needs her signature light cone, if E1 is a better option, and more. This was done in the creator experience server and it's not indicative of the final product. So for the first investment point, we have Asta as Ruan Mei's replacement. Our Firefly is running the F2P light cone on the Fall of an Aeon with a minimum of 150 speed with her new relic set and using attack percent body, speed boots, brick effect rope, and attack percent sphere. So in Apocalyptic Shadow versus Argenti, we were able to obtain a score of 3,464, which is quite high considering the max score per side is 4,000. In MOC, we were able to obtain 26 cycles remaining, so this squad took us a total of 4 cycles. As for Pure Fiction, note that the buff is targeted towards follow of attack characters, and usually for this mode we don't run a sustain, but for the consistency of testing we use Gallagher here instead of someone like Himiko, right? Nonetheless, we recorded a score of 24,089 for the second half. Now, the issue with using Asta is definitely the missing weakness break efficiency, since without Ruan Mei, it takes quite a bit of time to chop down the enemy's toughness. But overall, Asta and Firefly are way more than enough to get the job done. Also note that the previous Asta Firefly team showcased 3 extra turns in her ultimate window and not 4 extra turns. If you want to consistently get 4 extra turns using Asta, your Firefly will need at least a pseudo 168 speed before her ultimate with a maxed out Asta that can ultimate every 2 turns. That's because 280 total speed is her new breakpoint from the original 210, meaning that you will need at least 12 substat rolls into speed, which is quite a lot if you're trying to get a decent amount of break effect as well. You can also substitute this with a Dance 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 light cone on your Harmony Trailblazer, but you may lose out on the ability to ultimate on the first turn with Harmony MC. However, I suspect that if you can meet the pseudo speed breakpoint requirement, Asta and Firefly teams can yield an extra cycle or 2 in MOC and maybe even be comparable to that of someone else. Next up, we have Bronya replacing Asta, and boy, in my opinion and from testing, Bronya is definitely a bit awkward to use. Even with her signature light cone, Bronya and Firefly consume way too many skill points for our economy to sustain. Therefore, a lot of the times, Bronya will have to use a turn to generate skill points instead. This reflected in the overall performance as this squad took a whole 5 cycles to clear MOC. For Pure Fiction, this team did not perform any better, sitting at a score of 21,416. And for Apocalyptic Shadow, we got a score of 3,329, over 100 less than Asta's team. This is probably because the speed buff from Firefly's ultimate in combination with the game mode's buff gave us over 300 speed. Therefore, it creates a Firefly that is just too fast for Bronya's action advance to really get any good value from. Now, what about a Ruan Mei investment for Firefly? How big of a difference does she truly make in every aspect of the endgame? For my Ruan Mei, I'm running her with the Meshing Cogs light cone. You can also run Memory of the Past, but since we're using break comps, the extra damage percent provided by Ruan Mei's brick effect does not contribute too much since damage percent doesn't apply to break attacks. However, we do need Ruan Mei to go before Firefly with a high enough speed to help generate skill points. Furthermore, if you are able to get Firefly to 165 speed before using her ultimate, it will also allow you to get 1 extra turn in the 0th cycle, giving you an extra turn for the damage window. So yeah, aim for 165 speed or 155 if you're using Ruan Mei. Overall, the performance was as expected as it blew Bronya out of the water with an MOC clear speed of 1 cycle. As for Pure Fiction, we got a score of 25,000, and finally, Apocalyptic Shadow gave us a score of 3,617. So yeah, overall, Ruan Mei is definitely just too good as a secondary support for Firefly. As for using Pela instead of Gallagher, the results of this investment point were very similar to the previous team, except in Pure Fiction, where Pela's AoE defense shred and speed outshines Gallagher. So yeah, there's no need to use Pela when Gallagher can also sustain our team as well, in my opinion. However, this next investment point caught me by surprise, replacing Pela or Gallagher with Boothill. With a standard Boothill build using the 4-piece quantum set for an extra 10% defense shred, we were able to obtain 29 cycles in MOC, but we barely missed 0 cycling it with 1 extra turn from either Boothill or Firefly. So did I give up and cave into using her light cone or Eidolons? No. Instead, I put our cowboy on the America build, the 4-piece eagle set. This in combination with the 3-star 3-star Lycone, Adversarial, and Dance 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 on Harmony MC essentially allows Boothill to hit that pseudo 200 speed, meaning that we will be able to take 3 turns in 1 cycle. And with this Howdy Partner type of build, we managed to pull this off. So Firefly breaks. Oh, 350,000 damage. All right, 40%. Can Boothill finish here for a 0 cycle? Bang! That's what I'm talking about, Boothill. There we go. 0 cycle with a 4-piece Eagle Boothill and E0 S0 Firefly. Insane. As for Apocalyptic Shadow, this team also dominated the competition by a mile with a plus 80 points over the Pela Ruan Mei team. As for Pure Fiction, yeah, this team isn't what you want to be using. Nonetheless, this is unironically a pretty decent team, as Ruan Mei is able to enable both Boothill and Firefly so that they can break efficiently. As for the next point of investment, we are now using Firefly's Light Cone. Overall, the signature Light Cone in Apocalyptic Shadow did not do much and yielded us the same score as the Fall of an Aeon, even though the damage difference between the two was about an 8% gap. But what about MOC? Well, the results were the same, 1 cycle. No different from just an F2P Light Cone from my experience. The 8 to 10% damage difference doesn't do too much here either. However, this cannot be said for future content, as there will be situations where that 8 to 10% damage difference will yield us an extra cycle, but in this situation, it doesn't. So yeah, if you had to pick Ruan Mei or Firefly's Light Cone, 1000% go with Ruan Mei. But now the real question becomes, can E1 Firefly beat out the Light Cone, or will the results be the same? So the nice thing about her E1 is that it allows her enhanced skill to not consume any skill points upon usage. It also provides an additional 15% defense shred. This would have been amazing for our poor old Bronya. However, Firefly's best team will not get much out of it since there's never a skill point issue to begin with. Therefore, the results in the endgame were pretty much the same as her signature Light Cone, with the signature Light Cone having a slight edge of about 1%. So in my opinion, it is not worth going for E1 unless you are also going for E2, and I will talk more about that in the later section. Well, Zeto, what about an E1 S1 Firefly investment? Overall, both E1 S1 are insanely good for providing the extra damage. It's overall about a 12 to 13% increase over her signature Light Cone alone. However, the extra damage doesn't change her play style drastically, i.e. giving her another turn or helping her meet a certain breakpoint requirement. Therefore, the results were relatively the same for MOC, but for Apocalyptic Shadow, the extra damage did help in getting us almost 50 more points. However, I do not recommend getting her E1 unless you are willing to commit for her E2. In my opinion, it's probably better to just save. Finally, what about E2? I'll be using E2 with the free-to-play Light Cone on the Fall of an Aeon, and the results were pretty good. E2 drastically changes her playstyle since E1 gives her infinite skill points, and E2 allows her to act again after breaking or defeating a unit with her enhanced skill. However, there is a 1-turn cooldown. It's definitely pretty good, and in my opinion, a big jump from the previous Eidolon. So if you had to choose between E1 S1 or E2, the answer will obviously be E2 with her free-to-play Light Cone. This will easily take the win for me. However, in my opinion, Firefly is perfect at E0, and anything past that is really pretty much overkill, even with the free-to-play Light Cone as well. You will be able to smash and delete all content. But Zeto, what about 4-piece Eagle Firefly? And while you guys take a look at this, I want to remind you guys to spend responsibly, as E2 on average takes 280 pulls to get and 480 pulls if you end up hard pitying every time. That's like roughly $500 to $1,000 if you were to just buy it from the shop. Also, I'm trying out this new format to see if it's helpful or interesting for anyone, so let me know if I should continue doing this by subscribing below. Hey, 4-piece Eagle, baby, let's go. 0 cycle with the 4-piece Eagle. It is what it is. And finally, if you guys didn't see it yet, please don't build 4-piece Eagle Firefly. If you run her with the 4-piece Eagle, might as well have your Firefly be naked at this point because it's useless, okay? Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.